Hello and a happy Saturday to everybody. Josh here on the wrong lead, drinking champagne, joined as always by Champagne, Mr. Andrew Champagne. Andrew, how you doing, man?
Doing really well. First and foremost, Happy New Year to all of you out there. This is our first show of the year 2024. Hopefully, the holiday season was a good one for all of you, and you were able to spend plenty of time with your family, your friends, your loved ones who knows, maybe you also actually like your loved ones, which is always a plus. Josh, yes, indeed. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Josh, how was your holiday, man?
It was good. Christmas, obviously, we saw my family, my wife's family got ill.
Oh,
And so luckily they told us ahead of time. We were able to kind of reschedule for a later date. So we were able to get together a little bit later. And then for New Year's, my wife and I just did what we've done the last couple of years, which is just stay in, make fondue, and have some nice wine, champagne, and just kind of relax and do a marathon of something. So last year was the Lord of the Rings trilogy extended editions,
uh-huh.
which I had to, which you made fun of me because it was the first time that I'd seen. Was it Return of the King? Whatever the last one's called.
I wasn't the one that made fun of you for that.
I thought it was you.
No, it wasn't me. I haven't seen
Mm.
any of the Lord of the Rings movies at all. Just hadn't been my speed.
I
I'm
don't
not
know why
saying
I'm
you're
booing you.
bad.
I'm
I'm
just
just saying that that's not my speed. That wouldn't have been me. That might have been one of the other on the wrong lead
It
degenerates.
was probably Caleb, to be
It,
honest
it,
with you.
it was either the bald one or the handsome one.
Yeah. It's probably Caleb if I had to guess. He's a closet nerd. He likes to think he's not a nerd, and he'll make fun of me for what we ended up watching. So we ended up watching an anime, and we kind of did a marathon of that called Spy X Family. Have you heard of it?
No, I have not.
It it's I don't know. It's a fun show, which is basically the premise is basically this spy needs to infiltrate a school and therefore needs to like create a family, and so like he adopts a girl who happens to be like a telepath and ends up just finding some quote unquote random woman to like be his like made up wife, and she's an assassin. And I don't know, it's a fun show. It's very lighthearted. And Yeah, I don't know. We enjoy it. My wife's watched all. It's a current show, so she's watched all the episodes that have been released so far. And we basically got through most of the first season, so it was a fun time. But yeah, we have a couple of other media-ish things that we're trying to get through. One, which is one that I told her we would do and we haven't yet, is get through all the Fast and Furious movies. She bought the Blu-ray collection of all of them. So that's up next. I think after we catch up with this anime is start getting through the Fast and the Furious. So
Cars go fast and things blow up.
I
There, I've
mean,
just
what else do you need? I
let's see how many Fast and the Furious movies are there?
think 9.
Okay, assuming there are 9 and they're 2 hours each, I've just saved you 18 hours.
I mean, there's much more to it in
You're
there.
welcome. It's okay. All right. No, it's good that you're able to do that sort of thing. I had 3 things from the holiday that really stood out for me, and one of them was media related. Uh, I got my long suffering fiance to see The Iron Claw, which, for those uninitiated, is a movie chronicling the exploits of the Von Erich family, a wrestling family from Dallas, Texas. It's a tearjerker. You only see the movie once. I am very familiar with the subject matter. It's a real downer. But my long suffering fiance unfortunately let slip that high school aged version of her wanted to marry Zac Efron. So the way the conversation went was, Hey, honey, you want to go see the new Zac Efron movie? Sure. No takebacks. Wait, is this the wrestling movie? Yes. What time? Crap. So, but no, it's a very well done movie. It's heavy. You only see it once. It's in the $1 million baby realm of movies where we can acknowledge they're incredibly well done, but you don't really want to see it again after it's over. Just it's a tough watch, that's for sure. So that was the media thing. I've got a couple of things here that I think you'll get a kick out of if I can do the carrot top props in a box thing. For those of you watching on YouTube here, Josh, if you'll oblige.
Okay.
So the first thing I need to give a shout out to our friend Rachel McLaughlin over in Indiana. She sent over a saddlecloth from one of the stakes races that they ran over there.
Nice.
So, yeah, the backstory behind this is she advertised a Twitter contest, and I was very enthusiastic because I believe there was a horse named Pop the Cork or Popping the Cork, and yeah. So I tweeted something about entering so I could win one of those. And Rachel buzzed me saying, hey, listen, I got you. I'll send you one. Cool. So I need to figure out the best way to hang this because this is really, really cool. Shout out to Rachel for that. Very grateful. Josh, have your hand on the soundboard for this one because the last thing I want to show you is a to me from me present.
Oh, I'm booing already.
You see this big old space right back here?
Yeah.
Wall. So
Is it a picture of you?
Down here is probably going to be the saddlecloth, right? It is not a picture of me. However, I would like you to do me a favor. Can you commit to describing what you're seeing when I show this to you for those of us that maybe are listening on an audio-only platform?
Yes.
Okay. This was the
Lord Miles. God bless it. I knew it. Lord Miles winning the wood, and it's the nice framed.
And that'll go like right up here. I think that'll really fit. Put this right up here. Put the saddlecloth right below it. You got Saratoga in here. You got the 2 pink sheets up in here. Yeah, I'm. I gotta say, pretty stoked about that. Now, there's good news to this.
What is that?
The good news is I will never have to say anything on this show anymore about Lord Miles. But the trade-off is for every show that I do from this setting, you're going to have to see it.
And you can point to it. Like you
bet.
point to Saratoga all the time.
Hey, just saying. It works out pretty well, doesn't it?
Goodness gracious. Well, yeah, there were a couple of topics we were gonna kind of get through. Let's start with the more depressing one. I mean, it's not really depressing, but Andrew, it's kind of funny because last year, when we talked about your Eclipse award, your Eclipse award votes. Sorry, not your Eclipse award. That's never going to happen.
It might. I got to tell you, it might. And if anyone ever has to give me a microphone, you will hear the greatest speech in the history of the Eclipse Awards since they tried to play Willis Horton off after Will Take Charge won something and he refused to leave the stage.
Anyways, somehow I don't know what happened, but it ended up being our number 1 episode last year, which, okay, in of itself wouldn't have been that crazy, but some algorithm picked it up because we're talking thousands and thousands and thousands of downloads, and it's crazy. So maybe, I don't know, maybe we'll catch lightning in a bottle twice. Maybe we'll trick the algorithm again. So, but I don't know. How can I put it? I looked at your ballot. I've looked at, some of the ballots posted by other members of the media, the Timeform guys, David and Craig. I've seen, their ballots, and I know they actually did a podcast talking about their ballots on the Timeform Pacecast. And, I feel like this year, I just the it was tough, and not tough in a like, oh man, there are a lot of good horses tough, but oh man, I mean, there are not a lot of good horses, and a lot of these horses, like I started looking at some of these names, and they just kind of like started running together a little bit for me, these horses, and especially, honestly, for me, especially on the 2-year-old side. Like for example, your 2-year-old filly, just FYI, won, obviously won a great race on the Friday Breeders' Cup card, and I don't have the video pulled up, but we have a video of our friend Greg jumping up and down, cheering home 12, 12, 12, and yeah, you know, he was really excited about it, but it's just like, I don't know, some of these you kind of go through it, and I don't know. I think you kind of put it best a little bit before the show. You were like, I didn't take as much joy. You didn't take as much joy in it this year as you normally do.
Not really, no. To preface this, voting for the Eclipse Awards is one of the things I am most honored to do. Another one of those things is having a Hall of Fame ballot. Those two are two of the big ones. They're honors, they're things that I do not take lightly. And the reason that I post my ballot every year is in the interest of public disclosure. I believe that if you have a ballot, you should be able to put it out there, because with great power comes great responsibility. You're responsible for the votes that you put out there, and anyone that's interested in knowing how you voted should be able to find it. Simple, right? There's always the annual Twitter backlash from people saying, "Oh, these guys are chasing clout," whatever. I actually had a really good Twitter back and forth. Josh, those can still exist. Did you
I
know
don't
that?
believe you at all.
You can actually still have meaningful conversations with people on Twitter. Our friend Mixtape Matt and I went back and forth a little bit, and he tried to talk about people chasing clout by posting this stuff, and talking about how they're doing that by being transparent in an untransparent game. I'll throw this back at you, though. If that's your gripe, why are you taking it out on the people who are being transparent? And that
No,
was about when I think he realized I might have had a little bit of a point, and we sort of came together in the middle. And I believe we laughed over our other friend, Ed DeRosa, planning to abstain from steeplechase horse again. I know Ed put his ballot out. I haven't seen that yet. But that actually was a pretty good conversation where we were able to actually talk something out. What an improbable thing, right? But going back to what you had mentioned, yeah, it's tough to be enthusiastic about championship campaigns when those campaigns can include 2 Grade 1 wins sometimes. It's hard. And another one of our friends, Road Warrior, pointed this out, talking about how it disgusted him to see European horses atop so many ballots. Well, whose fault is that when in 1 or 2 starts, European horses sometimes accomplish as much as American horses do all year?
no,
I,
it's a
I
fair
don't
point.
I don't love it, but that's the world that we live in right now, where A, our horses don't run that frequently, and B, our turf horses just don't measure up to the turf horses that are coming in from Europe and Japan. It's hard to acknowledge that fact, but if you're watching this on YouTube, first of all, thank you for doing so. Hit all those buttons down below, the like, the subscribe button, the bell for alerts, really helps us out. But if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see my ballot up on the screen. I posted this on Twitter a couple of days ago. There's no controversial thing there. There's no ultra surprising thing going on in there. It's a pretty standard, straightforward year where I don't think there's going to be a lot in the way of bonkers ballots that wind up getting put out there. And there have been bonkers ballots in the past. As my buddy Joe Nevels points out, every year when he discloses his ballots for the Eclipse Awards, there was one year where a voter voted Drosselmeyer champion turf horse when he ran on turf once and was 6th or 7th. it happened. There's going to be bizarre votes somewhere. But as far as sources for actual debate are concerned, Josh, look at the categories, look at the horses involved. You can make cases for different horses to be second or third, what have you, but I don't think there's a lot of room for actual debate about who's at the top of most of these divisions. Fierceness and Just FYI won the Breeders' Cup races. They're your champion 2-year-olds. Arcangelo won the Belmont and the Travers. He's your champion 3-year-old male. I put Pretty Mischievous on top for the 3-year-old filly. I know Randomized is going to wind up getting some support because she did run second on Breeders' Cup Day, but Pretty Mischievous wound up winning 3 Grade 1 races. I know we don't want to acknowledge one of them because that was the test where Maple Leaf Mel went down. 3 Grade 1s, including the Kentucky Oaks, which is Grade 1 in all caps. She's a champion. Cody's Wish, lock. Idiomatic, lock. Elite Power, lock. Goodnight Olive, lock. Unfortunately so because of the injury suffered by Echo Zulu. I thought she was sitting on a massive race in the filly and mare sprint, but thankfully it seems as though she's doing okay. Up to the Mark, lock. Female turf horse, that's an ugly division this year. I went with Mauge, but I've seen some ballots that still have an Italian up on top. I've seen some with Inspiral. That's just a terrible division this year. For steeplechase horse, I got to tell you, Josh, I'm not seeing nearly as many abstentions on the whole. And Kerry Bryan, steeplechase trainer who trained under Jonathan Shepard for a while, has gone out on her own and has won a lot of races. She actually put together a guide for voters that got put out on the Pollock Report as a way to sort of lay out what each horse wound up doing. I don't know who's going to wind up winning that, but it is pretty good that that information wound up getting supplied to voters, that we wound up having some basis of knowledge that we could draw from to potentially make an informed decision. So, Kerry, thank you very much. Appreciate that. As far as the human categories go, Godolphin's going to Sweet Boner and Breeder. Arad Ortiz, based on stats, is probably going to be champion jockey. I wouldn't be surprised if Javier Castellano gets some votes. Axel Concepcion is the leading apprentice jockey by any measure. Bill Mott trained Cody's Wish and Elite Power, and Just FYI. That's, tough to go against for a top trainer too. So all told, I don't want to say that these horses are not talented because they are. Cody's Wish is probably going into the Hall of Fame at some point. Idiomatic put together a fantastic campaign where she got very, very good in the back half of the year. Elite Power won a Breeders' Cup Sprint again. Goodnight Olive won a Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint again. Up to the Mark ran second in the Breeders' Cup Turf. His race in that Breeders' Cup Turf wins some Breeders' Cup Turf renewals. These horses have a lot of talent. But as I said on Twitter when I posted my ballot, God, I really wish they ran more.
Yeah, I really I like your ballot. I kind of looked at a couple of other ones, and I see a lot of similarities across the board. I mean, I only have maybe 2 changes I would absolutely make, and you already know what they are, so I don't have to tell you what they are.
Which ones are those?
Horse of the Year and older dirt male.
Yes, because you are the second biggest White Abario fanboy behind our friend Mike Rennie.
Uh, who won the race that Cody's Wish did not win this year?
White Abario.
Okay, so transitive property. White Abario beat Cody's Wish. Cody's Wish, I don't think, has beaten White Abario. Therefore,
Yes, he did.
leapfrog.
Cody's Wish beat White
Oh,
Abario.
yeah, that's right. In the Met
He
Mile,
kicked
right?
White
Yeah.
Abario's ass, I'll have you know.
That's fine. No one cares about that race though.
Yeah,
Who races the
except for
mile?
breeding farms.
Which is really weird because I mean, I don't know, classic distance horse, blah 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 blah. But I still believe that classic distance horses are the pinnacle of racing. So I would not put a sprinter as horse of the year unless he did something very very very. Look at. I've tried to beat Cody's Wish way too many times. and if I had a vote, I would beat him in the one place I know I could definitely beat him, and that's in the voting box. So, okay, maybe that's me being irrational
I was going to
and
say this
erratic.
does not sound like an unbiased representative of the national turf writers and broadcasters.
No, does not, which is exactly why I do not have a vote. On top of the fact that I'm not a writer, or I don't even pretend to be one. Well, I guess sometimes I do pretend to be one, but yeah, I don't know. That's probably my big thing, and even then, like, that's me being like super nitpicky. I've seen I think White Barrio on some people's list. I think Ed DeRosa. Um, but yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and be like, if someone tells me Cody's Wish is horse of the year, older dirt male, like, of course, like um, would he not be considered a sprinter?
Cody's Wish,
Because
I I don't think so, but that's a judgment thing with me. I think, unfortunately, over the last 10 years, we've gone from sprinter and router to sprinter, miler, and router. That's just
yeah,
the name of the game. And that's, where we're at right now. With Cody's Wish having won 3 grade 1s and a grade 2, and coming off some of the most impressive races of the year, I tossed the Whitney, admittedly. That race was run over a very strange Saratoga track that was playing very quirky. It was 2 turns, which we know he's not a 2 turn horse. I just couldn't penalize him that much.
yeah, no, I mean that makes sense. I mean, it was a horse doing something that they were hoping the horse could stretch out, and obviously he couldn't. Um, and that's logical, Josh coming in, but emotional Josh, uh,
Who hates
Wide
stories? Who
Barrio.
hates good stories?
Oh yeah, I hate good stories. I somebody it was really funny because I think somebody in the Discord was saying something, and I'm like, look, and I feel like I've been pretty. I mean, I am a fan of horse racing, right? There are times I watch races where I don't have an opinion, and I just watch races to watch races, but like, I don't know. I'm not somebody who like, and we've talked about this. I'm not somebody who's like, oh, let me go back and watch, you know, Beholder, win some race that doesn't exist anymore at a track that no longer exists anymore or whatever. I don't even know. I don't even know if like Beholder's that old. Like I, I like betting on it. I like watching the horses run. I like, you know, uh, watching a race from 15 years ago doesn't really help me handicap a race, handicap the next race at Mahoning Valley. Like, and maybe that's very like short sighted and like simple minded of me, but like, the betting aspect obviously is the part that drew me to the sport, and it's the part that keeps me engaged for the most part. Um, you know, uh, not, and also like not to like to take the other side of it too, like I also like I'm not like a complete degenerate, right? Like I want these horses to be cared for. I want these. I don't want anything bad to happen to the horses as much as maybe I will jokingly say something or other about, maybe he goes to get a hot dog or something, and maybe he's infertile or something. I don't know,
Josh,
like.
be very, very careful. People on horse racing Twitter are going to automatically assume the worst based off of the things you say solely because I'm involved and that's what they do to me.
But yeah, like, yeah, I like the betting part is the important thing. So yeah, like stories and stuff like that, like, that doesn't do anything for me. And
If I didn't know any better, I would say this sounds like a segue to something else.
yeah, actually, it is a little bit of a segue because it's kind of funny because we were talking about this a little bit about your your and Road Warrior. I saw also jumped in on this about bowling, right? And uh about how people in bowling are trying to get people into the sport, and I think it's real similar to this. And uh, you know Mr. Rapoli, who I've never met. I've just see what he posts on Twitter. He's a very I'm just gonna say he's a very big personality. I don't really I don't care for him one way or the other. I have a very neutral opinion on him, but he's a big personality. He's a loud New York, brash New York guy. Like,
Hey, what do you have against loud, brash New York guys?
I love your dad. I don't know what you're talking about. But he was talking about what was it, like the Pollock report basically posted like a statistics like, hey, these are the most visited sites, stories or whatever, and how they were all negative, right? And talking about positive stories, that's how it gets. And it's like, I mean, I guess positive stories might get people involved, but like that's such a small subset. I mean, it's a gambling game, you know. The NFL is as big as it is, not because of the stories behind the NFL, not because I mean the football is a great sport. I think right now we're in a bit of a decline in the quality of the game. Maybe that's just me getting older and being grumpy. Um,
Things just aren't what they used to be. Kids these days, get off my lawn.
but
Wait, I don't
what
have a lawn. I live in California. Josh, have them get off your lawn.
what keeps people involved in football? Fantasy football and wagering. And I'll tell you right now too, there's another podcast I listen to. I'm a big fan of soccer, or football as they call it elsewhere. It's called The Rest Is Football. It's got Gary Lineker, Alan Shearer, and Micah Richards, who are some pundits that work for BBC, CBS. They're all over the place. If you've watched any kind of soccer coverage, you've probably heard or seen of at least one of them. And Micah, who was they're all former players. He was telling a story about he was watching a game, and how just upset he was because he had started some player in his fantasy Premier League, game, and how he was just like life or death. And it was really funny because Alan Lineker, he's a slightly older guy. He's probably like in his late 50s, early 60s. And he's just like, I don't understand. My sons are the same way. It's like one minute they're just like, oh, they're so happy. The next minute it's like death. Like they don't understand it. And it's like, Micah being a younger guy is like, yeah, like fantasy is everything. Like you have no idea. Like, and this is a guy who played in the league, played in the sport, is a pundit. Like, it is his life. And the thing that drives a lot of his neutral interest is the fantasy Premier League. And obviously me being a coming from the betting side, I mean, maybe one saying this is me being biased, but I mean, looking at other sports, you kind of see that. But that was a huge, I guess, kind of tangent a little bit towards the story you were talking about with bowling.
Yeah, I'm going to attack some of this in sort of an out of order sequence because there are a lot of things that have happened over the last couple of days that maybe you've missed if you're a horse racing fan. First, the Media Eclipse Awards were announced for last year. And I, first of all, want to once again congratulate everybody that wound up winning something. I'm fortunate enough to be friendly with some of the best storytellers in the game. It's a tremendous honor, and I'm incredibly happy for all of you. The stuff Mike Rapoli was saying about the Pollock report was something that was significantly twisted and doesn't have a leg to stand on. A lot of people out there want to say, tell more good stories, whatever. The data that was put out by the Pollock report is just that. It is factual data of the stories people actually read. It is not their fault that there were so many of those stories to tell. News is good, bad, and indifferent. If you want something that's good all the time, go get some PR. News and PR, not the same thing. I also want to specifically congratulate Tim Layden and Sean Clancy. Tim works for NBC Sports. Sean Clancy works for the Saratoga Special, which is where I got my start writing about horses in between years at Siena College. They both won awards for stories that were written about the breakdown of Maple Leaf Mel in the test. That is the worst breakdown I have ever seen. That is the worst day of racing I have ever witnessed in 35 years of my life when it comes to Saratoga Racecourse. Those two told a story that is incredibly tough, And them doing so is a reflection of the best of us, not the worst. It is a reflection of incredible composure in some terrible times, not a reflection of ambulance chasers and if it bleeds, it leads. If you are out there and you think they capitalized on that situation, if you think the majority of horse racing journalists only tell the bad stuff and go out of their way to ignore the good stuff, go away. That is factually incorrect. And you've been listening to the wrong kind of conspiracy theories. Go over to the Pat McAfee show, listen to Aaron Rodgers. That's the stuff that you're addicted to, and that's the stuff you deserve. Now, with regard to turning it around to bowling, some of this came about because of a tweet I put out earlier on Friday. An acquaintance of mine, a content creator in the bowling space, a gentleman by the name of Luke Rostall, he makes a lot of bowling videos for a bowling company that makes equipment. So he winds up throwing balls, saying what they do, saying how they compare to other equipment that's been released. And he's very active within that community. I'm going to read this, and I want you all out there to do me a favor. Every time I say the word bowling, substitute horse racing. It fits perfectly. Again, this is something written by a gentleman named Luke Rostall. You can find him on YouTube, Rosdahl. Here is a snippet of what he had said. I've seen a lot of comments about being more positive and having more fun in 2024 because of how miserable bowling and the bowling community was in 2023. But to be perfectly fair, what exactly has bowling given people to be positive about recently? There's a responsibility both one by the participants to not exaggerate or manufacture reasons to be miserable, all caps in parentheses, good luck there, but two, by the sport to give us things to be positive about in the first place. If you go to a restaurant and the service sucks, the atmosphere sucks, and the food sucks, and then you leave a negative review and get gaslit about not being positive, is that really fair? While I've seen a lot of crazy, ignorant complaining about a lot of really dumb things in bowling, period, not just last year, you can't flip it on people and say bowling needs positivity. It's not in a place where it can afford negativity, etc. And the solution is that we just need to ignore what's going on and try to act positive, not that we need to fix or improve anything. Bowling needs accountability. It's like watching Restaurant Impossible or Bar Rescue or something. Bowling is and has now long been the shitty restaurant that people have tried to patch and hold together and make excuses for and avoid accountability. But at some point, you need somebody to come in, get up their asses, and tell them to get their shit together, because that is ultimately what positivity is. I put that up on my Twitter. If you missed any of it, if I was going a little bit fast for you, I apologize. Go take a look at that. Substitute horse racing anytime you see the word bowling. It is strikingly, hauntingly accurate.
I see what you did there.
Thank you.
That was a turkey of a gutter double.
Boo. Hit the boo button right now on yourself. Thank you. You ruined a good thing, Josh, and you should feel horrible about it.
Dude, have you seen you talk about bowling and it just makes me laugh because I'm thinking of another just kind of niche sport. Have you seen any of the stuff about this 16-year-old darts player?
I haven't seen anything about the 16-year-old darts player. I did see something about the 13-year-old Tetris prodigy who broke the Nintendo game.
Yep. I was just laughing because yeah, this 16-year-old apparently is like ran the table in some big tournament in darts, and it's just I don't know. Yeah, I mean the Brits are with their darts and their pool. They're much more into the niche stuff than I think us Americans are.
And by
But
the way, really quick, before we go any further, if you're offended by us calling horse racing a niche sport, it is. Just saying. It is.
yeah, I mean it definitely is. I would I mean. and it's not anything bad. I mean, like I played
No,
disc
it's
golf.
just calling a spade a spade. It's not a bad thing. There's nothing wrong with that. It is, however, not getting an overly inflated sense of self importance based on any sort of perceived clout that's out there. And if you're not watching on YouTube, Josh is holding up a collection of frisbees. If I could turn my camera around, you would actually see a full closet of about 10 or 12 bowling balls that are either not being used right now or have not been drilled. So trust us, we know something about niche sports.
But yeah, I mean, like it's its own community. Like it's it's quote unquote growing, which like everyone never always says. But yeah, it's just I feel like at a certain point they really needed to embrace that hey, besides the derby, like not a lot of people care, and that's not to say that you can't get more people into it. You can't continue to have people involved, but like it ain't coming back like it did, like it was. I don't know, even 10 years ago, even 15 years ago. But that's not to say that it can't be something. And I really like, yeah, it's just tough because I think what what you're kind of talking about with bowling, where you probably similar to horse racing, you have a lot of old heads that are trying to continue to do things the way they used to do. And Andrew, you have that saying that you love to say all the time. You want to do what?
Yep, pretty much. It's the old saying of people who are trying to scream, "We want to grow the game. We want to grow the game. We want to grow the game." Somebody somewhere comes up with an idea that will actually do something but involves short term sacrifice. And a whole bunch of people say, "You want us to do what?" Look, this is not a problem on one person or one group of people. It's a group effort. And
Yep.
it's one of those instances where I'm not going to try to be overly dramatic and say, oh, there's blood on everybody's hands or whatever. But at a ground level, you need to breed a horse. We're not breeding sounder horses that can run as much. We're not setting up a structure where it pays to keep the best horses in training. Owners could make a statement. Owners could say, we're valuing stamina and soundness over brilliance. They haven't done that. Exhibit A, the price tags from a number of 2-year-old in training sales were horses who are not yet mature, not yet fully sound in some cases, go a furlong breezing while under the whip. No, there's no good reason we should be doing that, yet we keep doing that. Trainers could say, listen, I'm not going to take horses from you. These are not the horses that I want in my barn. But no trainer is going to do that to somebody that's worth hundreds of millions of dollars and could be a valuable client. They're instead changing their programs around to be kinder to horses that can't run as much or won't run as much because certain owners have quotas based on win percentage that trainers need to meet. Otherwise, those horses are going to other barns. And Josh, listen, bettors aren't completely off scot-free here. If any of this happened to a betting sport, like a baseball, a basketball, a football, a hockey, whatever, people just wouldn't bet it. Yet here we are. It's an institutional failure on a lot of levels. And it's not negative to say that when a lot of the facts are out there and accepted as fact and would rather be ignored by a lot of people who wish the system was different, yet are willingly buying into the old system.
Yeah, I think systematic failure is probably the best way to describe it. And um yeah, I mean you can just only hope that they're able to right the ship before it's too late.
Yeah.
Not to be like too negative, right? I mean, but I will say that the last couple months has been the least I've wagered personally. I've been playing Turfway a little bit here and there. Um,
Shout out
but
to your friend Caitlin Free, by the way. She had a day on Thursday night. Did you see
yeah,
that?
yeah, she did great. And yeah, so she's been on fire. And I'm not going to say any more than that because other people on Twitter have already taken that too far. But uh, yeah, with like I played a little bit of Turfway, but I'm thinking back to your point that you bring up all the time about um, you want to do what, and I think like the perfect example is Canterbury Park, right? Canterbury Park a couple years ago, maybe it was 2 years ago, instituted insanely low pick four and pick
It was
five
3 or 4
takeouts.
years ago. Yeah, because I remember this was still a thing during the worst part of COVID. Yeah.
It was like 10% or something, right?
Yeah. It
And
was crazy low.
so they did great. And then this last year, the casino subsidy ended in Minnesota. Purses got slashed, stakes got slashed. Not as many horses ended up shipping in. And after it working for the first year or 2 years, however long they did it, um, uh, handle came back crashing down. And everyone's like, see, no one cares about takeout, And it's like, look, it like, yes, takeout needs to be lowered, right? Low takeout is better for the better. But you also need horses. And this is something, I recorded an episode of You've Got to Be Shot Tinning Me with my friend Matt. And, we were talking a little bit about a lot of stuff. We talked a lot about craft beer and about how we make speed figures.
We talked about bowling on Twitter
And we
today.
talked, there you go. So we went places, but, we talked in particular about the nice thing about Shot Tin is you got 9, 10, 12, 14 horses in every race. And much like Turfway Park, who also gets those kinds of fields, like that's what makes the payouts, go bananas when you hit something. And it's like, yeah, like, we talked a little bit about or you had mentioned a little bit about like fan education and just some of the stuff that people say that just doesn't make any sense. But I do think that um, there's a little bit of credence to like, hey, if it is a 12 horse race instead of a 6 horse race, right? And there's a horse you really like, you're more likely to get your price on that 12 horse race, even if it's a clear cut favorite that is 5-2. Um, that price is magnified by the fact that there's 12 horses versus 6. And I think that field size is a definite issue. Field size is a definite issue out in California. And that's another, I don't have answers. I'm just once again coming from it from a better, right? I, I, I still bet Turfway Park. I am not betting much, but I'm betting Turfway because I know, hey, if I see an exact eye, like I know I'm going to get paid, and I'm going to probably get paid well if I hit that. Versus, and same thing with Hong Kong, which is the other track that I've been playing as of late. And it's due to field size. Like takeout helps, but like you need the field size as well. I think to really get those payouts.
And the unfortunate thing moving forward is that issue is not going to get any better for things that, as a bettor, we can't control. Full crops are continuing to decline for any number of reasons, and less horses that don't run as much mean shorter fields. And that's something that people in the breeding game need to get their heads together on, because if we're not breeding as many horses, and those horses are running 4 or 5 times a year, why are we running the same amount of races and the same amount of days? This is one of those things where no question is a bad question. And I understand, look, no one wants to go to 2 days a week. Nobody. I get that. But How many tracks in the dead of winter should be running more than 3 days a week? It's not many, Josh.
No.
And that right there is something that we can do to say, look, we know we're not going to get as many days, but instead of having 5 and 6 horse fields, maybe we have 7 horse fields consistently for some of these races. If racing secretaries are carting the right races for the horses on the grounds. And I know they're trying. I do not envy the job of a racing secretary in 2024 because you have to card all of these races and get really creative with conditions that fit a number of different horses while doing favors for some of the horse people that are on the grounds so that they will run their horses and so they'll be able to support your product at the entry box. That is a tough, tough gig at any point, let alone now when there are genuine horse shortages at pretty much every track. One quick thing before we put a bow on this discussion, though, you mentioned low takeout in big fields. Josh, I got to tell you, I've been impressed by Delta Downs this meet. There's a case where they, a month ago, announced they were slashing their takeout on pick fours to 12%. Some of the payouts that were eligible tonight, we're recording this on Friday night, so Friday's pick fours, the late pick four started 2-1 favorite, 2-1 favorite, 5-2 favorite. There was not a 50-cent pick four will pay below $100 in the last race. And I know that doesn't sound like anything massive, but if you're putting forth $24, $32, $40 on a pick four sequence, those are the payoffs that'll keep you going. And those are where you can potentially put together a skinny ticket and be guaranteed a reasonable shot and a reasonable rate of return if you're right. It's what gambling is. It's picking your spots, making sure that you've got the best of it as much as you can, and then being right. And Delta, to their credit, over the last couple of weeks has done a really nice job of doing that. It's not a big track. It's a track that runs at night. It's a bull ring. Some horses like it, some horses don't. But Josh, I got to tell you, with Sam Houston and Texas Horse Racing fighting that stupid, nonsensical battle with HISA the way that they are, some B track had to get my money. It's going to be Delta.
Yeah, Mark is a huge fan of Delta Downs, and I know.
Yeah, I know. He did some streams and cleaned up. Yeah.
Yeah, and then Caleb as well has joined him on the Delta.
I was on the Delta train before that was cool. When I was working for TVG, I gave out Delta Downs tickets.
There you go. Anything else you want to talk about?
I mean, just best wishes for a happy and safe new year, everybody. And to put a bow on the earlier discussion, if you're at all doubting how much we love this game and how much we want to do well, if you're listening to people who say, oh, these guys don't like horse racing, they want to see horse racing die, they're so negative. We've got 50 shows just of drinking champagne that you can listen to. And if you can't sense our enthusiasm for the product on a big day, how much we love this game, how much time we spend on this game in addition to regular big person jobs, how we create this content for you on a weekly basis, and just how much fun we have doing that on big days, if you can't sense that, I can't help you. This is a case where we want what is best for this game, whatever that is. This isn't working. And it's not negative to say something that's based in fact.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for us here. Obviously, you can check Andrew out at Andrew Champagne. I am at Cherry Drank on thewronglead.com, at wrong_lead on Twitter. Like, subscribe, hit all the buttons. Hey, maybe we'll get a couple thousand listeners again this episode. We'll catch you guys later.